The movie opens with two brothers, David and Peter, who arrive at a remote cottage in the middle of the forest. Once inside, a scared Peter exclaims that they will go to hell for this, but David tells him to shut up. He then tells Peter to retrieve milk from the car so they can have coffee. Following this, Peter heads to the car, but his annoyed brother approaches and reminds him to wear the mask. The terrified man obliges and opens the car trunk, revealing an unconscious and bound woman named Tracy inside. Upon returning to the cottage, the brothers begin discussing the unconscious woman they have kidnapped. But Peter suddenly notices moths flying around and panics because he is deathly afraid of them, so his brother kills the moth right away. Afterward, the brothers put on masks and remove the unconscious Tracy from the trunk. They bring her upstairs inside the cottage, only to realize they have forgotten the room keys. David then goes downstairs to retrieve them, while Peter holds onto the girl. But then, the girl awakens and repeatedly strikes Peter's nose. David soon arrives, and he ties Tracy to the bed before locking her inside a room. Afterward, David scolds his brother for his carelessness, and Peter's nose is broken and severely bleeding. He starts yelling, so David pulls his nose to fix the bone, causing him to scream. The scene then cuts to the city, where we see a big man named Andrew heading inside a club. He soon arrives in front of an office and tells a henchman that his father has summoned him. Back in the cottage, David explains that he can't talk to Tracy, since she has met him many times at the club. He thus assigns the task to Peter, instructing him to scare the girl and make her believe that they will kill her. He even gives Peter a script on paper to memorize, revealing that they intend to demand a $100,000 ransom from her family. Following this, the masked siblings enter the room and remove Tracy's gag. David points a knife at her right away, and Peter tells her to cooperate, but the idiot suddenly mentions David's name while he is threatening her. However, the girl insults him and recalls how she broke his nose despite being tied. Peter doesn't argue with her and calls Tracy's stepdad, Arnie, to ask for the ransom money. He starts reading out the script, demanding that Arnie send his son alone with the money, or else he won't hesitate to kill the girl. Up next, Tracy informs her dad that she's fine, but she also mentions David's name, which causes him to angrily hit her. Tracy then reveals that no one had ever laid a finger on her, and when her gangster dad finds out about this, he will murder David and his entire family. Upon hearing this, the annoyed brothers quickly put the gag back on her mouth before locking her again. Outside the room, David is furious with his brother for being an idiot by mentioning his name in front of the girl. David is tired of his brother's incompetence, prompting them to have a heated argument. On the other hand, we learn that Andrew turns out to be Tracy's stepbrother. His father, Arnie, hands him a bag of cash and tells him to deliver it to the kidnappers. We later see Andrew driving toward the cottage, and he calls David to let him know he has the money. Unbeknownst to Andrew, his father has already sent two Chinese henchmen, Mukli and Chunyo, to secretly follow him. Shortly after, Andrew arrives at the cottage, and here we learn that he's also an accomplice in the kidnapping scheme. The three of them celebrate, thinking they have finally received the money that will change their lives. However, David gets nervous when Andrew says he didn't check inside the bag yet, and when David opens it, they are shocked to discover that it is filled with tissue paper only. David is frustrated that he has to do this scheme with two idiot creatures, and the Chinese guys can also hear him from their car outside. The missing money means that Arnie knew about his son's involvement in the hostage-taking. Meanwhile, the three inside the house realize that their whole plan has fallen apart. Peter blames his brother for everything and then heads outside to calm his mind. The Chinese henchmen notice him and update their boss. We also notice that they have kidnapped a man in the back seat. After this, Mukli gets out of the car with a meat cleaver and takes a peek of the two brothers inside. David asks if Peter has a bank account, as they need to do a wire transfer, but Peter reveals that he only has a joint account with his wife, so they can't use it. With no other option, David decides to use their mother's account, which Peter opposes. He worries that the criminal activity will be traced back to her, but David argues that it doesn't matter because she's dead. After this, a reluctant Peter heads outside to call his wife. He asks her to get their mother's folder and begins writing down the account number. But at this moment, Tracy suddenly manages to remove her gag and begins screaming, causing Peter to drop his phone into a pond, which he quickly retrieves. The two men rush to restrain Tracy, but an idiot Andrew accidentally shows his unmasked face to Tracy and gets cursed. Peter also enters the room unmasked, so David quickly puts her gag back on. Again, David feels annoyed for getting involved with idiots like Peter and Andrew, who can't do one thing right. He checks the cell phone, but it's wet and doesn't work anymore, while Andrew's phone's battery is dead. And so, a fed-up David says he will go to the nearest payphone and call Arnie from there. Peter worries that Arnie will recognize his voice, but David says it doesn't matter because Tracy already knows him. He then takes the account number from his brother and departs with Andrew's car. After David leaves the house, Arnie informs the Chinese duo that he is coming soon, so Mowgli takes the hostage into the forest to get rid of him. Elsewhere, David finally finds a payphone and calls Arnie. He demands that he transfer the money to his account by morning, but Arnie abruptly hangs up the phone. David then notices several old people outside, all staring at him. When David asks what's wrong, an old man asks him to lock the door and remain inside, as strangers do not fare well in this area. But the exhausted guy doesn't take the advice seriously and leaves. Elsewhere, Chunyo grows worried as Mowgli still hasn't come back. He hears screaming in the distance and heads toward the woods. Chunyo can't find him anywhere and instead discovers Mowgli's meat cleaver embedded in a tree trunk. Just then, we hear someone screaming, and David returns to the cottage at the same time. David hurries inside but is shocked to find Andrew lying unconscious on the floor. He then finds that both Tracy and Peter are missing, so he awakens Andrew and demands to know what has happened. A dazed Andrew struggles to respond but gradually starts recounting the events. Through a flashback, Peter and Andrew learn that Tracy needs to use the toilet, so they both accompany her to the toilet. Shortly after, Tracy needs to clean up, so Peter decides to untie her, but he soon notices a moth which freaks him out. And then, Tracy attacks them and knocks Andrew out. As David listens to the stupid story, he grows worried that Peter is alone with Tracy, who seems to be a dangerous woman. Just then, the man who had been held hostage by the Chinese bursts into the house. An idiot Andrew recognizes him as his barber, whom he accidentally informed about his kidnapping plan this morning. David demands to know who brought him here, and the barber reveals that it was the Chinese. Before passing away, he warns them not to go outside because it's dangerous, and the duo notices his torso is brutally ripped open. In another scene, we see Peter walking through the woods while Tracy holds a knife to his back and orders him to keep moving. She's determined to find a house so she can call her father. They soon come across a fence with a warning sign that says "Do not enter." However, the defiant Tracy heads inside anyway, and Peter has no choice but to follow her, but he drops his wallet while crossing the fence. Later, Tracy and Peter notice a small farmhouse, with its door unexpectedly open. They cautiously head inside, and Tracy calls out for someone, but receives no answer. The two soon reach the living room, where the fireplace is lit, and the walls are covered in photographs of various people, some of which have been ripped apart. Peter claims that something about this place is strange, but Tracy dismisses his concerns and heads upstairs in search of a phone. Elsewhere, David and Andrew stumble upon Mowgli's lifeless body in the woods, his throat brutally slashed. This horrifies them, and Andrew believes Chunyo may have killed him as the two were constantly arguing. Returning to the farmhouse, Peter enters one of the rooms but is immediately swarmed by moths, which scares the life out of him. He rushes out of the room and makes his way to the kitchen, where he grabs a bag of frozen peas to relieve his pain. Here, he notices a wooden trapdoor beneath him and hears noises on the other side. This causes him to panic again, and he screams for Tracy. Tracy then opens the door without hesitation, but they only find a set of stairs leading down to a cellar. But at this moment, their attention is drawn to several human hands frozen in the freezer, right when Tracy is stabbed in the abdomen by someone. To their horror, a huge and disfigured farmer emerges from the cellar. As Tracy collapses to the floor, a terrified Peter runs frantically around the house, with the psychopath hot on his heels. Peter manages to lock himself in a room upstairs, but the farmer continues to bang on the door from outside. Moments later, the banging abruptly stops, and Peter wonders what's happening. But then all of a sudden, the farmer bursts through the door, forcing the poor guy to make a desperate leap out of the window. Following this, Peter attempts to leave the barn, but an injured Tracy stops him and begs for help. But when the maniac appears, he abandons her in panic and flees. The farmer then pins Tracy to the ground and is about to kill her, but Peter knocks the man unconscious with a shovel. After gathering themselves, Tracy hands Peter the machete and instructs him to finish off the farmer before he wakes up. But the poor guy hesitates to do so since he has never killed anyone before. As the two are busy arguing, the farmer suddenly awakens and cuts Peter's feet with the shovel. He then proceeds to finish him off, but Tracy makes fun of him and tells him to hurry up. This irritates the farmer, so he brutally cuts off her skull through the upper jaw. Up next, the farmer knocks Peter unconscious and drags him somewhere. Shortly after, David and Andrew come across Peter's wallet near the fence and realize that he's around. They soon arrive in front of the psychopath's house and find a piece of Peter's shoes, along with a piece of his foot inside. This prompts David to abandon the kidnapping plan and focus solely on finding his brother. Moments later, David enters the farmer's dark house, and he comes across a book. Inside the book are newspaper clippings about an accident that caused a farmer to lose his face. And to their horror, Andrew spots Tracy's corpse outside, while David finds her head inside the room. Andrew freaks out at the sight and pleads that they leave, but David refuses to go without his brother. And then, as Andrew turns on the lights, the duo is shocked to find the room filled with a lot of decapitated heads. David observes that his brother is not among them, so he must still be alive. Andrew then mentions that he noticed one of the ugly heads just moved, and this is when the farmer suddenly gets up and attacks them. He pins David's leg to the ground with a pickaxe, making him unable to move. He then slashes Andrew's back with a rake, but the latter manages to run away from there. Soon after, Andrew arrives at a stable, where he receives a call from his father and realizes he still has some battery left. He answers the phone and reveals that he's on a farm, a madman is pursuing him, and his sister is already dead. Just then, the deformed farmer appears and gruesomely stabs him with his machete. Meanwhile, Peter wakes up, hanging on a hook and screams in pain. David is nearby and asks his brother for help because he's nailed to the ground. Upon hearing this, Peter agrees, and somehow manages to free himself. He crawls over to his brother, and after a great struggle, they both pull out the pickaxe. David then expresses regret to his brother for bringing him into this. Elsewhere, we see the farmer brutally killing Andrew and ripping out his spine along with his head. In another scene, David claims that he doesn't want to die in this place and asks his brother to get up. The two then enter the psychopath's house to find a phone and call for help. The terrified Peter suggests leaving, but David says there is not another home within miles, and they can't run away in their injured state. He then asks his brother to wait while he heads upstairs to find the phone. But moments later, Peter hears strange noises coming from inside the cellar and wonders what it could be. David, on the other hand, arrives in a room and is horrified to see several masks made of human skin. The sight deeply disturbs him, and to make it worse, David spots the farmer outside the house. He thus quickly rushes downstairs to join his brother. But before the two can find a way out,
did you hear that?
the psycho farmer then appears right in front of them, so the siblings fight back bravely since they have no other options. But even their combined strength is no match for the huge madman. In the end, the farmer holds Peter by the neck and is about to kill him. But a desperate David finds a wedding photo of the farmer and threatens to tear it up. The plan surprisingly works. David then tells him to head to the cellar if he wants his photo intact. However, since David has already ripped the photo too much, the enraged farmer stabs him through the chest with the pickaxe. David soon succumbs to his injuries, while the farmer tries to repair the photo. Enraged by his brother's death, Peter grabs a rope and begins strangling the giant man, but the farmer manages to throw him into the cellar and the door slams shut. Peter still holds one end of the rope and continues to pull on it. The psycho tries to grab a shelf, but Peter pulls so hard that it collapses and falls on top of him. Following this, Peter tries to open the wooden door, but it is blocked by the weight of the shelf and the dead farmer. And so, Peter descends into the cellar to look for any exit route. But unfortunately, he is shocked to see the farmer's wife and daughter, who begin to attack him. After the credits, we see Arnie and his henchmen arriving at the farmhouse the next morning. And before the film ends, they are greeted by the still-alive farmer, who bursts out of the house wielding a pickaxe. Thus, we reach the end of this movie. Thanks for watching. If you like the movie, support us. Don't forget to subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next movie. Goodbye.